Hi, my name's Roxanne. You can follow me on my blog at Projects with All My Heart. Today is a quick tutorial on using perfect pearls and stamping with Versamark. This is a technique I used on a project recently in a class I taught. And so just to go along with the class, what I had done is used a on the edge die from Tim Holtz, the doily edge, to create a little accent piece. And so I needed to have part of it trimmed. And so here I am just demonstrating how to trim up the edges. You can use a paper trimmer for this as well, but my craft knife and my ruler worked very well. So you can see here as I pull the images apart what parts I have left. It's difficult to tell in the picture, and sorry, part of it's off the frame. There, you can see what is left of it. The next thing that we're going to be needing, you'll need to get a Versamark ink pad. You could also use Perfect Medium. The Tim Holtz Distress Ink embossing pad also works quite well. You'll need a very fluffy brush. I've got two there, but it was just to show you the ones that I use. And sorry, the brushes are off camera right now, but later on you'll see them. And you'll also need a lovely background stamp. For this project, I used a stamp called Book Covers, CMS 103. By Stampers Anonymous, and it's a part of the Tim Holtz collection. I use the small stamp on the envelope, which you will see later on in the video. And for this portion, I use the large book cover. And because it's such a narrow portion of paper, I only needed to use part of the stamp. So I'm inking it up very generously with my Versamark. Sometimes you need to even prime a stamp like this, just if you want to have guaranteed coverage. You can just stamp off on a scrap piece of paper that you have lying around. So here, I'm just wanting to stamp onto the paper, although I could have used my craft mat as well, just easier for cleanup. And I'm lining up the corners of the stamp with the corners on my paper. That's just a personal preference. So you can see that only a portion of that ink stamp was used. So I'm going to go back and re-ink it, and then I'm going to do the top portion. But I don't want to have any of the Versamark or stamp on top of that doily portion. And so just to get around that, I'm going to cover it up with another piece of scrap paper. And then I can go ahead and stamp. Exactly the way I did the other end. Oops. And press firmly. And then ink it up again. And this time, you'll want to also cover the two portions that you had stamped previously. So again, I got out some more scrap paper to cover up the other end. And this just worked very well. And then I can go ahead and stamp, just being careful again to avoid that doily portion. And there's nothing wrong with inking the doily, but I've just preferred in this project to leave it plain. Now in the video I'm using blue paper, but actually in the layout it was a pink cardstock that we used. And I just turned over my scrap paper and I'm getting out my perfect pearls. I used biscotti and there's my brushes. And you just basically dip your brush right into the perfect pearls, tap it onto the paper and brush it across. And I haven't found exactly that one stroke of the brush is going to work a certain way to get the coverage of the pearl on over the stamped image. So I just use a variety of brush techniques. I do circles, I do crisscross, diagonal, just try to vary up the motions, and that just seems to help to get rid of all of the excess powder from the places where it shouldn't be sticking. But it does take a little bit of time, as you can see here in the video. I left it on real time so that you can see how long it does take to just kind of brush it over. It's actually quite quick, and the more practice you get, the faster this is. I'm just using one color of perfect pearl, but again, this is something if you wanted to mix it up for a background for a card, you could do several different colors of perfect pearls mixed. There you can see that the image is starting to come through a lot more clearly and cleanly. You can see the different brush strokes that I'm using to achieve this. And that Versamark stays sticky for quite a long time and gives you lots of room to be able to get the pearls all over it. I sped up here at the end and trying to quickly get it done. You can see too that a small portion of the powders goes quite a long ways. Excuse me. I'm just getting off the excess powder at this point. And you could keep doing this even further than what I had finished. Excuse me again. And I'm just putting my excess powder into my Perfect Pearl container. I apologize, the next portion of the video, some of it is off screen. This is my first video, so I'm learning. Accept my apologies. The other thing too that you need to do when you use Perfect Pearls is you need to also have it bond to the paper. And so just a really quick way to do this is to spritz it with water. So you can just take just a little mini mister and just mist the paper directly. Or I believe I learned this technique from Jennifer McGuire to take a mister and mist in the air and then wave the paper through it. And I just find that waving it through it does seem to set the Perfect Pearls quite well. And it also doesn't curl my paper too badly. Although once the paper's dry, you could always, put it under a heavy object or iron it if you really are worried. And just as a bonus technique, I'm showing you something else that you can use with Versamark. So I'm just taking a scrap piece of paper here and I'm making it directly onto my Versamark ink pad. And then I'm going to use the same color of Perfect Pearls, Biscotti, and I'm going to brush it just as I did before, but all over the Versamark. And you'll notice there's no stamped image in this case. It's all flat. This is a great technique if you want to punch out a little embellishment like a butterfly or a bird. Something that, of course, isn't too hollow on the inside. Even a little scallop circle would be great, or a starburst. So I've brushed all the Perfect Pearls across the Versamark. Then I'm just going to take a stamp, and in this case, this is from the new My Mind's Eye collection. And I'm just inking my stamp up with Versamark. And then I'm going to stamp directly over the Perfect Pearls. And I'll take the stamp away, and it's lifted the Perfect Pearls away from the paper, like magic. Anyway, so quite a neat technique. You could see how cute that would be. So here's the layout. I used that technique on that pink doily edge die on the background, as well as the envelope below. I also used it on the letter title, and you can just stamp it and brush it on, and then later on I went over it with glossy accents to give it some more dimension. So you can see how the glossy accents really makes it pop.